You were 8 years old when you learned how to cook dinner for your siblings. 10 when you started doing the laundry. 12 when you became your mother's therapist, listening to her cry about her marriage. You never asked for any of this, but someone had to do it, and that someone was you. Welcome to the world of kids who grow up too fast, where childhood isn't about playing and laughing and being carefree. It's about surviving, about being responsible, about being the adult when the actual adults couldn't be. Today, we're going to talk about what happens when children are forced to become parents, when innocence is stolen, when childhood becomes a job instead of a gift. And if you recognize yourself in this, if you never got to be a kid, I want you to know what happened to you has a name, and it wasn't your fault. Let's start with a question most people never think about. What is childhood supposed to be? It's supposed to be safe, protected, a time when your biggest worry is whether you'll get to play outside or what cartoon comes on next. It's supposed to be when adults take care of you, not the other way around. But for some kids, childhood looks nothing like that. Instead, it looks like coming home from school to find your mom in bed, depressed, unable to get up. So you make dinner. You get your little brother ready for bed. You do the dishes, the homework, everything. Or it looks like being 6 years old and already knowing how to calm your dad down when he's angry. Already knowing which words to say to make him feel better. Already learning that your job is to manage his emotions. Psychologists call this parentification. It's when a child is forced to take on parental responsibilities, when the roles get reversed, when the child becomes the caretaker. And it's more common than you think. There are two types of parentification, and both of them steal childhood in different ways. The first is instrumental parentification. This is the physical stuff: cooking, cleaning, paying bills, taking care of younger siblings. It's being the one who makes sure everyone gets to school on time, who checks that there's food in the house, who becomes the parent because your actual parent is absent, sick, addicted, or just not there. The second type is emotional parentification. This is when a child becomes their parent's therapist, confidant, or emotional support system. It's listening to your mom complain about your dad, being told adult problems you're too young to understand, mediating your parents' fights, keeping secrets, managing everyone's feelings. Both types do the same thing. They force a child to grow up before they're ready. And here's what most people don't understand. This isn't about helping around the house. All kids help sometimes. That's normal. That's healthy. Parentification is different. It's when helping becomes your identity. When you're not just helping, you're responsible. You're the one everyone depends on. And if you don't do it, everything falls apart. That's the weight, the burden, the thing that changes you forever. Let me tell you what this looks like in real life. You're 12. Your mom just got divorced. She's devastated, crying every night. And you're the oldest. So naturally, you become her support. You listen to her pain. You tell her it'll be okay. You try to make her feel better. Meanwhile, you're also taking care of your younger siblings, making sure they eat, making sure they don't see mom crying, being strong for everyone. And nobody asks how you're doing. Nobody thinks about what you need. Because you seem fine. You seem so mature, so capable, so strong. Everyone says, "You're such a good kid, so responsible, so grown up." And you smile. Because that's what you do. You handle it. You always handle it. But inside, you're just a kid who wants someone to take care of you for once. A kid who's tired, overwhelmed, scared, but you can't show that. Because if you break, who will hold everything together? This is the trap of parentification. You become so good at being the strong one that nobody sees you need help too. Here's where parentification usually comes from. Sometimes it's because a parent has an addiction. They're not capable of being a parent, so the child has to step up. Sometimes it's mental illness, depression, anxiety. A parent who's physically there but emotionally gone. Sometimes it's absence, death, divorce, incarceration. One parent leaving and the other being overwhelmed. Sometimes it's just immaturity. Parents who never learned how to be adults themselves, so they lean on their kids. And here's something important. Most parents who parentify their children aren't doing it on purpose. They're not trying to harm their kids. They're struggling, overwhelmed, doing their best with the tools they have. But that doesn't change what it does to the child. Intent doesn't erase impact. Because even when parents don't mean to hurt you, even when they love you, parentification is still a form of neglect. It's a boundary violation. It robs you of the innocent childhood you're entitled to, and the effects follow you into adulthood. Let's talk about what happens to kids who grow up too fast. First, you lose your childhood. And I don't just mean you missed out on playing. I mean something deeper. You lose the opportunity to develop a strong sense of self. Because you've been too busy taking care of others. You don't get to figure out who you are, what you like, what you need, what you want, because none of that mattered. What mattered was what everyone else needed. So you grow up without really knowing yourself, just knowing your role, the caretaker, the responsible one, the strong one, and that role becomes your identity. Second, you develop what psychologists call hyperindependence. You learn early that you can only rely on yourself. Asking for help feels impossible, dangerous, like admitting weakness. You become the person who does everything alone, who never asks, who never admits they're struggling. Sound familiar? Because this connects directly to what we talked about before, about people who always help but never ask for help. That pattern often starts here, in childhood, when you learn that needing help isn't safe. Third, boundaries become impossible, because the normal parent-child boundaries were blurred or non-existent in your childhood. You don't know how to say no. You feel responsible for everyone's feelings. You accept poor treatment because it feels familiar, and you end up in relationships where you give everything and receive nothing, because that's what you learn love looks like. Fourth, you tie your worth to what you do, not who you are. You believe you're only valuable when you're useful, when you're helping, when you're needed. So you can't rest, can't stop, can't just be, because being isn't enough. You have to do, you have to prove, you have to earn your place. And that's exhausting. It's a way of living that burns you out before you even realize it's happening. Fifth, anxiety and depression become your companions, because you've been living in high stress since childhood, worrying about adult problems, anticipating crises, trying to keep the peace. Your nervous system never got to relax, never felt safe, never had the luxury of just being a kid. So you carry that hypervigilance into adulthood, always waiting for something bad to happen, always on edge, always responsible. Here's something that might surprise you. Parentified children often become extremely empathetic adults. You learned early to read people's emotions, to anticipate needs, to be attuned to everyone around you. And that's a gift in some ways. It makes you caring, compassionate, good at understanding others. But it comes at a cost. Because you're so focused on everyone else, you ignore yourself completely. You might find yourself always mediating conflicts, always trying to fix things, always taking care of others. Not because you want to, but because it's all you know how to do. And people love you for it. They praise you for it. They depend on you for it. But nobody asks, who takes care of you? Let me tell you about the grief that comes later. For years, you might not even realize what you lost. You just live your life. You function. You succeed even. But then something happens. Maybe you become a parent yourself. Maybe you see a child playing freely. Maybe someone asks about your childhood and you realize you have no happy memories. And suddenly, it hits you. The grief of a lost childhood. The pain of realizing you never got to be a kid. You were too busy being an adult. Too busy taking care of everyone. Too busy surviving. And nobody protected you. Nobody said, you're just a child. This isn't your responsibility. Nobody gave you permission to just be young. That grief is real. That loss is real. And it deserves to be mourned. Because you can't get those years back. You can't redo your childhood. It's gone. And that hurts. It hurts in a way that's hard to explain to people who don't understand. They might say, at least it made you strong. Or it taught you responsibility. And maybe it did. But that doesn't make it okay. You shouldn't have had to learn strength through suffering. You shouldn't have been robbed of innocence to gain maturity. You deserve better. That child you were deserved better. Here's what happens in your adult relationships when you grew up too fast. You might find yourself constantly in caretaker roles, always being the one who gives, helps, supports. You attract people who need you, because needing is how you learn to be loved. And you stay in relationships that are one-sided, where you're exhausted, where you get nothing back, because that's familiar. That's what home felt like. And familiar feels safe even when it's painful. You also might struggle with intimacy, because being vulnerable feels dangerous. You learned early to be the strong one, to not have needs, to handle everything alone. So letting someone take care of you? Terrifying. It goes against everything you learned about survival. And if someone tries to get too close, tries to see the real you might push them away. Not because you don't want connection, but because you don't know how to receive it. There's also the inner critic, that voice in your head that says you should do more, be better, achieve higher. The voice that tells you you're never good enough, that you're failing, that you should be doing more. This voice is often the echo of parentification, of learning that your worth depends on what you accomplish. And it's relentless, cruel, impossible to satisfy. Let's talk about something important. Not all parentification is traumatic. Some children find ways to balance family demands with their own needs. They develop resilience without losing themselves. And in some cultures, children contributing to the family is normal and expected. It builds character, teaches responsibility, creates strong family bonds. The difference is context. Is the child still allowed to be a child? Do they have support? Are their needs met? Are they praised and appreciated? Or is everything on their shoulders? Are they alone? Are they carrying burdens no child should carry? That's the line between healthy responsibility and harmful parentification. And here's the thing. Even when parentification has some positive outcomes, like empathy and maturity, it still comes at a cost. You can be grateful for the strength you gained while also grieving what you lost. Both can be true. You don't have to choose. So how do you heal from growing up too fast? First, you have to acknowledge what happened. Accept the reality of your lost childhood and how it's affected you. This is harder than it sounds, because you might have spent years minimizing it, telling yourself it wasn't that bad, that other people had it worse. But this isn't a competition. Your pain matters. Your experience matters. You don't need the worst story to deserve healing. Second, tell your story. Find a safe person, a therapist, someone who can hold space for you. And say it out loud. I had to grow up too fast. I took care of adults when I was just a child. I never got to be young. Saying it makes it real. And real things can be healed. Third, connect with your inner child. That part of you that never got to play, to be carefree, to feel safe. This might feel silly at first, but it's powerful. Ask yourself, what did I miss out on? What did that child need that they never got? Maybe it was freedom. Maybe it was fun. Maybe it was just being held and told everything would be okay. Whatever it was, you can give it to yourself now. Do the things you never got to do. Pick up that hobby. Watch cartoons. Play. Be silly. Give yourself permission to be young, even if you're an adult now. Fourth, learn to set boundaries. Start small. Practice saying no. Practice prioritizing your needs. This will feel wrong at first. Selfish. Uncomfortable. But boundaries aren't selfish. They're necessary. They're the thing you never got to have as a child. And you deserve them now. Fifth, practice self-compassion. Be kind to yourself. Understand that your feelings are valid. You're not being dramatic. You're not overreacting. You're not weak. You're healing. And healing requires gentleness. Sixth, consider reparenting yourself. Give yourself the care, validation, and protection you didn't get as a child. This is therapeutic work, often done with a professional. But the idea is simple. Become the parent you needed. Tell yourself the things you needed to hear. You're safe. You're loved. You don't have to be perfect. You can rest. Those words might bring up tears. That's okay. Cry them. They're overdue. Therapy helps. A lot. Especially with someone who understands parentification and childhood trauma. They can help you see patterns you don't even realize you're stuck in. help you process the grief, help you build the life you deserve. And support groups can be powerful too. Being around others who understand, who lived it, who get it without explanation. That validation, that me too, can heal in ways nothing else can. Here's what I want you to know if you grew up too fast. You were just a child who deserved to be protected, cared for, allowed to be young. What happened wasn't your fault. You didn't ask for it. You didn't choose it. You just survived it the best way you knew how. And you did survive. You made it. You're here. That takes incredible strength. Strength that shouldn't have been required, but strength nonetheless. But here's the thing. You don't have to keep being that strong anymore. You don't have to keep carrying everything alone. You're allowed to put it down, to rest, to let someone else hold you for once. You're allowed to grieve the childhood you lost, to be angry about it, to wish it had been different. And you're also allowed to heal, to reclaim the parts of yourself that got buried under all that responsibility. The playful part, the vulnerable part, the part that just wants to be loved without having to earn it. That part of you is still there, waiting, hoping you'll come back for them. And when you do, when you finally allow yourself to be taken care of, something beautiful happens. You realize, I don't have to be the adult all the time. I don't have to have it all together. I can just be. And just being, that's enough. You're enough. Not because of what you do, not because of who you take care of, not because of how useful you are, but because you exist, because you're human, because you matter. So if you grew up too fast, if you never got to be a kid, here's my invitation to you. Start now. Give yourself the childhood you deserved, in whatever small ways you can. Play, rest, be silly, ask for help. Let someone take care of you. It won't erase what happened, but it can heal what's still hurting. And you deserve that healing. That child you were, they deserve it too. So start today. One small step, one moment of gentleness, one act of self-care. That's how you reclaim what was taken. That's how you give yourself what you never got. And slowly, piece by piece, you remember, childhood isn't gone. It's just waiting for you to come back.